One of the storylines going into Cobra Kai Season 5 is the continuation of the rivalry between Kenny Payne and Anthony LaRusso. So far, the community has been buzzing with some of these questions related to this feud. How will Shawn come into the picture? How will Robbie be involved considering he was close to both Kenny and Anthony at 2 different points? And of course, one of the more frequent questions, who will be the one to train Anthony and Miyagi-Do? What if there's another way where it involves 2 students who were once at odds with each other and now are on the same side? This is my opinion and theory of how Hawk and Demetri will help Kenny and Anthony in Season 5. First, I'm going to recap some of the details that occurred in Season 4. If you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out my How Kenny Became Corrupted video, as this Kenny and Anthony theory will serve as a supplemental analysis. Normally, I'd say skip to the next chapter, but I'd highly recommend not skipping at this time, as I'll be doing a lot of comparisons to the Binary Brothers in regards to Kenny and Anthony's rivalry. In First Learn Stand, we're introduced to both Kenny and Anthony. Kenny is happy-go-lucky and doesn't mind indulging in his own interests, especially when it comes to Dungeon Lord. Although we don't know what he was like at his prior school, we could easily compare him to being similar to Demetri in this aspect, as they both share the same hobbies and keep to themselves. When he first meets Anthony, he and his friends are easily comparable to Johnny and the Cobras back in the 1980s, as they both bully the new kid out of jealousy when their crush takes notice of the new kid, or if we were to use a more current analogy, Hawk and his friends in Season 3, as he was jealous of Demetri having the attention of both Yasmin and Moon. The Johnny comparison is definitely applicable when it comes to the confrontation at Balboa Park, as we have Kenny trying to run away like Daniel did during the Halloween party, and Kenny initially being held up like Daniel was against Johnny and his gang. As I mentioned before in my Kenny video, Leah is definitely the ally in this situation, glaringly obvious as her name is an anagram of ally. Leah could be compared to Moon in this situation as well, depending on how you want to look at it, as Eli more than likely had a crush on her before he became Hawk, and vied for her attention in Season 3, which we can definitely see Anthony being similar to Eli and Hawk in this situation, especially in the gym. One of the reasons why Kenny may have flocked to Kreese, alongside his brother Shawn's recommendation to seek out Robbie, is what his father tells him on the phone. If you do things the right way, you'll see results. From the subtle details of this conversation, it's implied that James uses what he knows in the military in how he raises his children. I have no doubt that off-screen, Kreese more than likely used some sort of military analogy or euphemism in his teachings that struck a chord with Kenny, and is why he knows to respect his elders in this manner. Kenny, like Demetri and Hawk, both sought out Cobra Kai initially to deal with the bullies they faced on a day-to-day basis. Something notable in Then Learn Fly is when Kenny steps foot in Cobra Kai for the first time, he notices the quote of "fear does not exist in this dojo." This has a few subtle meanings behind it, with the first that Hawk trained with this mentality of Kreese's teachings for a long time and became both fearless and feared within the ranks. The same thing can be said about Kenny in a sense. He had fear when running away from Anthony and his gang, but by the end of the season, he no longer fears Anthony and is notably more aggressive in how he speaks and deals with him. Fear does not exist is also ironic in both that Hawk and Kenny were initially flinchers and or had never been in a real fight before training in depth in the ways of Cobra Kai. Both Hawk and Kenny flipped the script in their own way. Hawk became more confident with the help of a tattoo and the mohawk, while Kenny took the rage from being bullied and used it with the speed to strike Kyler, earning a spot within the dojo. It's also worth pointing out that both of these students were picked on by Kyler and were also eventually able to put him in his place. Demetri and Eli both looked up to Miguel when he was able to use Cobra Kai to put an end to Kyler's bullying, which is what leads them to trying out for the dojo. Kenny similarly looks up to Robbie for this reason, as he sees him as a brotherly type of figure and is taken under Robbie's wing. During the drive-in showdown in Bicephaly, Robbie coming to Kenny's aid when he perceives Hawk picking on Kenny is almost a repeat of what happened in All In Season 2, where Robbie comes to both Demetri's and Sam's aid when Hawk and Cobra Kai attempt to beat up Demetri. In Kicks Get Chicks, there is a reversal of roles that is displayed when Demetri asks Eli for help. In the beginning of the season, Kenny keeps to himself and plays Dungeon Lord, but then eventually focuses on karate. Now, Eli is quitting karate and is focusing on Dungeon Lord, going back to his ways before he took karate. Anthony tries to get Leah's attention by being a bully because of his jealousy towards Kenny, again comparable to both Johnny and Hawk in their respective arcs. However, there is one key difference to note between Anthony and Hawk. Anthony is notably picked on at times by Zach, Marcus, and Slade, leading him to take out his frustration on Kenny. This difference is what makes him similar to Johnny, who confided in Daniel in Different But Same that he was bullied every day by his stepdad. Similar to Hawk's actions in The Right Path in Season 3, Anthony initially lies to Daniel about being bullied by a student of a rival dojo. Anthony also has trouble seeing the importance of Miyagi-Do and thus has someone complete the chores for him, just like Demetri had trouble learning the aspects of Miyagi-Do though due to his initial lack of athleticism and his reluctance to learn. However, later on, Anthony begins to admire the items in the personal dojo that Daniel has, mirroring how Hawk admired the picture of the Okinawan sparring deck in Let's Begin. During this scene, Daniel has a one-on-one with Anthony in a similar vein to having a similar talk to Demetri after feeling powerless that he couldn't defend himself at the mall. Both of these talks once again occur after the students fail to see or learn the importance of Miyagi-Do. Anthony goes on to try to amend things with Kenny, echoing back to Demetri trying to do the same with Hawk and Pulpo in Season 2, though the difference here is that while Demetri eventually had the upper hand at the end of the episode due to Hawk's actions of pouring beer on him, Kenny has the upper hand at the end of the library scuffle, just like Hawk breaking Demetri's arm in the episode Miyagi-Do. The aftermath of this situation echoes back to the episode in No Mercy, where Miyagi-Do, in a way, is ultimately to blame, as Anthony had been the aggressor during the entirety of this rivalry. Last but not least, a similar comparison can be made where Kenny makes it to the quarterfinals and loses, while Hawk in Season 1 makes it to the semifinals but is disqualified. Here are some reasons why Demetri and Eli would be able to help squash the beef between both Kenny and Anthony. Both Hawk and Demetri can talk about the corruption of Cobra Kai in several aspects. More so Hawk, as at one point he was one of the dojo's top students under 2 different instructors and allowed it to corrupt him to the point he was hurting those he once held close as friends. It's very likely that Daniel would elaborate on why Terry Silver running Cobra Kai means bad news for the Valley to his students, including Demetri and Eli, as he can recount this experience of training under Silver and how it changed him, similar to how he did in Take a Right in Season 2. This would also allow both Demetri and Hawk to provide some context to why Nate and Bert were standoffish to Kenny when they realized he was associated with Cobra Kai, as they were also once part of the dojo. Demetri would be able to help establish the common ground that both Kenny and Anthony have, Dungeon Lord. We know for a fact that Anthony is also familiar with the game, as in First Learn Stand, he makes fun of Kenny's favorite character, Dr. Scribblebottoms, and goes into detail of why he thinks it's a lame character, prompting Zach to asking why he knows so much about the game. Also in Season 1, Anthony was often shown playing video games, so the reason he would know why he thinks the Doctor is such a lame character is because he also plays Dungeon Lord. I imagine if this were to happen, this would play out similar to the episode Different But Same, where Johnny and Daniel find out that they have more in common than they realize. I believe Anthony would identify more so with Eli, as he acted the same way out of jealousy. He became a bully like those who picked on him, pushed Moon away, and it wasn't until he realized who he truly was that he was able to reconcile with Moon. Eli could offer this advice with Anthony that he doesn't have to try hard to win the approval of others, but rather just be himself. If these two arcs are complete parallels of each other, then it's very likely that Leah would also distance herself from Anthony as Moon did, especially if she found out that he had constantly picked on Kenny. Demetri would be able to offer input on this as well, not only to Anthony, but to Kenny as he did to Hawk. I think you need a healthy dose of inner peace. And it did help. Demetri, over the courses of Seasons 2 through 4, got stronger, gained more confidence, and gained the girl of his dreams by finding his balance. Instead of relying on others to defend him, he eventually was able to defend others. I think it's possible that the Binary Brothers could help both kids, or they could focus on solely training Anthony and defending himself. This would parallel to Robbie training Kenny, as Robbie initially had good intentions but wasn't clear on guiding Kenny of when to use his aggression and when to show restraint, while both Demetri and Eli, more specifically his arc as Hawk, would be able to point out the mistakes Anthony would and could make when learning Miyagi-Do. If they're able to distinguish of when too much is too much, this could end with Anthony being more confident, more laid back, and being able to defend himself when needed. I imagine that with Demetri's help, Hawk would be an amazing mentor to Anthony, given the fact that he has now officially been in all 3 dojos: Johnny's Cobra Kai or Eagle Fang, Kreese's Cobra Kai, and Daniel's Miyagi-Do, because he was able to find the balance of aggression and defense in the tournament and became a champion as a result. Anthony would surely hold him in the same regard as his father, and perhaps could relate to him more, as they're not that far apart in age. In my opinion, these two helping out would make the most sense currently, as we know thanks to Daniel incorporating Johnny's own philosophy and raising his son made Anthony more willing to listen. I imagine that Anthony would hear out 2 of his father's top 2 students. I think Kenny would also be willing to listen, though more than likely a fight would happen before this could occur. This would either be a fight between Kenny and Anthony directly, as Kenny promised Anthony he would be in a world of pain in high school, or perhaps Eli also gets pulled into the mix where he saves Anthony from being attacked by Kenny, and Shawn throws him off to make the fight a 2-on-2 match. I would personally love to see a match between these two, as we know Shawn gave Robbie a run for his money, and this would also tie back into the Cobra Kai video game where Hawk and Shawn faced off in a fight, or in the event they go Demetri versus Shawn, this would be canon to the Miyagi-Do side of the story. As I discussed before regarding Shawn, while we know he respects Robbie, I can't see him not being loyal to Kenny and taking his side, as he was willing to take a fall for Kenny by protecting him from his friends. I think this would either result in Shawn joining Cobra Kai alongside Kenny, or just doing his best to look out for his brother while avoiding being caught in a public place, similar to how Tori and Robbie took revenge at the tattoo parlor against Hawk. Overall, I think Kenny and Anthony's rivalry will be interesting to watch no matter who steps in and assists. As we saw in Season 4, defense wins championships and people flock to winners. If you're going to use a VPN, you may as well go with multiple-time All-Valley champion like NordVPN. Go to nordvpn.com/StrifeTheWarrior or use coupon code StrifeTheWarrior to get a NordVPN 2-year plan with a huge discount. Here's why you need to secure yourself with NordVPN. You can use it to unlock Netflix and your favorite entertainment websites that are not available here in the US. You can connect up to 6 devices at the same time with one account. There's no data logging whatsoever, and it works even in China. If you're out and about and using public Wi-Fi networks in places such as coffee shops and airports, NordVPN will protect you with double data encryption for increased anonymity. Sometimes you need to wait and strike when the moment is right, just like Kenny did with Anthony and his friends. NordVPN works with Windows, macOS, Linux, iOS, and Android, has a Chrome extension which is very user-friendly, and unlimited bandwidth. If you're not happy with it for any reason, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. NordVPN was a 7-time champion in 2021, winning the Business Choice, Reader's Choice, and Best Tech Product of 2021 from PC Mag, Best Android VPN from Android Central, the Best All-Around VPN from Expert Reviews, Best VPN Service from Forbes Advisor, and App Development Team of the Year from App Promotion Summit. It's also the only VPN to get all the green checks on PC Mag. So what are you waiting for? Go to nordvpn.com/StrifeTheWarrior or use coupon code StrifeTheWarrior at checkout to secure yourself with NordVPN. Shout out to NordVPN for giving me the opportunity to be an affiliate. Let me know what you guys think down below. What direction will Kenny and Anthony's rivalry go towards? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like it, subscribe, share it with your friends, and comment, as these all help my channel grow. Be sure to check out and subscribe to my second gaming channel. I'm trying to get this channel to YouTube partner, and supporting this channel also helps me support my main channel. I'll be uploading more clips to this gaming channel, so stay tuned for that. I now stream here on my main channel on Fridays at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Keep up with me on my socials via Instagram and Twitter. Shout out to my YouTube members, I appreciate the support. If you'd like to directly support the channel, consider becoming a member and enjoy perks such as behind the scenes updates, access to the VIP Discord, shoutouts and videos, and more. Thanks for watching, stay beautiful, stay awesome, and we'll catch you around next time.